Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. We are here live to talk about none other than your Baltimore Ravens. I am James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we are looking forward to tonight's conversation.
Oh my!
Impromptu sneeze. Sorry about that, folks. Looking
Oh
forward to
my
talking
goodness!
about.
That's why they have a mute button, Jimbo.
I don't have a. I just have the headphones in right now.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I'm using my travel mic.
By the way, what is all over that snazzy looking shirt you got on?
These are flowers, dude.
Wow, you got to be, I mean, you're wearing a shirt covered in flowers. I mean, you got to be,
dude, hold on,
confident guy.
Hold on.
Look at it. So he's all flowered out. I mean, if it's not one flower shirt, it's another flowered shirt.
Oh yeah, my wife likes this pattern.
Are you in a hotel right now?
Yeah, I'm in Orlando.
It's just goofy looking behind you. It doesn't look like a traditional hotel.
No, there's more flowers on the wall behind me. I'm at a resort in Orlando, and it's supposed to be Hawaii.
Ah, okay.
Did
you get laid?
I'm
telling your wife. I'm telling your wife you are in big trouble. But no,
anyway, back
excited
to
be here. Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to be here for the first time live since the draft. And we, of course, we have a lot to talk about. Exciting weekend, surprising weekend. No doubt there was a lot of things that we didn't. I love Troy's comment. Yeah, it does kind of look like it looks like a couch.
I think I dressed pretty nice.
I mean, look, you pull it off, Jimbo.
Thanks, bro.
When not everyone could. Shout out to Darian. Appreciate it. Appreciate the
up on the wall, baby.
Yeah, get the name on the wall, no doubt about it. But yeah, we got lots to talk about from the Marquis Brown trade and the compensation that came along with that, as well as what some of these picks mean for some current Ravens, and also what type of cap space do they have left for some remaining needs? Because I think while we're both pretty satisfied with the draft haul, I think that there's also some opportunity where they can still improve the team.
Yeah.
And because I still think there's some holes on the roster. But I think you wanted to start with talking about the Marquis Brown trade. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do, I just want to recognize the presence. You guys won't see him, but his presence will be felt here. DK is in the background. And let me say this really quickly. This is how dedicated DK is. I forgot to text him that we're going live.
Well, and by the way, DK also, be on the lookout tomorrow. We just finished up an interview. Well, I finished up an interview with Evan Washburn from CBS Sports. And DK tried to save my mic issues. So when you watch the episode, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't realize that this mic that I'm talking into was not active. And I was using the laptop default microphone, so I sound like absolute garbage. And DK jumped in. He tried to save me. He texted me, but my phone was on silent, trying to do what was responsible because I didn't want it going off during the interview. And as he's doing now, he waved his phone as he's in the waiting room like this, trying to get my attention. But who knows? I was probably looking at stats. I was lost in Evan Washburn's eyes. I mean, who knows what happened?
There's potential that you were lost in the essence of Evan Washburn.
Yes, exactly. So the entire interview goes well, except for the fact that I sound like garbage. So please forgive me. It was an excellent interview. Be on the lookout for that dropping tomorrow. But back to the Marquis Brown stuff. First of all, it's always interesting, Jimbo, because it's like once things come to light, you kind of look back and you go, "We should have kind of seen this one coming."
Yeah.
I mean, with the wiping of the social media, the the no practice stuff with him and Lamar. I mean, is this something we should have probably seen?
Yes and no, though. Like I don't think that Hollywood did a good job of doing what Orlando Brown should have done. And just kept it private. Like, yeah, he scraped the social media, but he didn't actively tweet about the issue and things of that nature. And I'll also say, and because of that, a lot of people think that his tweet right after he got traded was a knock on the Ravens, where he said, "Shout out to those who really keep their word." Mm-hmm. I think it was a compliment to one Eric DeCosta, saying, "Look, this is what I wanted. He obliged what I wanted. It was a win-win for him and the team, and I appreciate that." Right? So I think that's what it really was. But, I mean, so to answer your question, yes and no, Glenn. We should have seen it coming because there was obviously signs of him being disgruntled. But at the same time, it wasn't super clear what was going on. I thought it had more to do with the contract. than it did with, him not wanting to be on the team anymore, which I think also might have to do with the money as well. Like, let's be honest, right?
I mean, how could it not be? I mean, my only thing is when he talked about the offense isn't for him and he wasn't happy. And you're right. The Ravens did an excellent job. I mean, they couldn't have traded him I bet if he could have handpicked any place to go, he would have picked Arizona if Hollywood had his choice. So
yeah.
I think it was an absolute win-win. Then you get the number 23 pick back in return is unreal. Now, of course, it comes out later on that obviously the Hopkins suspension was looming, and I think that the Cardinals knew that, and the Ravens may have even known that, and that's why it drove the price up and made them more desperate to pull the trigger. But my whole thing about Hollywood.
And Glenn, sorry, really quickly, the one thing you mentioned before that you're not mentioning is that they're in a situation with their quarterback much different than us.
Yeah.
Where he is not begging, he's demanding a deal. And they're doing everything they can to make him happy without just outright giving him a deal. So I think that's another thing, right? Like him and Hollywood have history. They played together in college, and he's an excellent weapon for Kyler Murray. So that's another piece of it. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that because I think it's important as well.
No, you're 100% right. And then the thing that kind of gets me a little confused is it seems like he wants more targets, but he was top 10 in the league in targets, total targets, as well as targets per game. He was top 10. So while at least in the initial part of the season, some people say, well, with Hopkins out, he's certainly going to get his target load, but maybe not in that he will now be getting the focus and the attention of the defense. Whereas if Hopkins is there, then he's likely going to be getting, a number 2 corner with not as much help because they're going to be busy double teaming DeAndre Hopkins. So I guess at this point, good, good for you. Good luck. I hope everything goes well, except for when you play the Ravens.
Right.
But not really sure. To me, he kind of seems like a bit of a selfish guy when he's all worried about himself. He's not worried about everything in that press conference it wasn't right for me. And it just seems like he came off as a bit selfish when he was top 10 in the league in targets. What more could you really want?
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to expound on that point because you mentioned it. He's looking for more targets. He was already top 10 in the league. But I also, one of the things that he mentioned that I was telling in the interview was that, it wasn't, and he said in college, I got less targets than I did with the Ravens, but I had bigger numbers, right? Like but he had longer yards per catch and more touchdowns and big plays and things like that. The one thing that Hollywood has to understand is that this isn't the Big 12 anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like where they don't believe in defense.
Yeah, where you're running free all the time.
Right. It's not gonna be a shootout 54-49 every Saturday. That's number one. Number two, so that's gonna be interesting because like you said, it's not really all about the volume, but it's about his usage. So and then about getting the ball when it's there. So at what point does Lamar say, okay, Hollywood, I understand that you're upset about the way you're being utilized, but Lamar has to think in his own mind, maybe even if it's just in his own mind, that like a little bit has to do with him thinking that I'm not getting him the ball in the best situations for him, or like he's open and just not getting it. I think a little bit of that has to, so I'd be interested to know, maybe the relationship wasn't strained. I don't know. Right. But there's a lot of layers to it. But at the end of the day, if you take the names away from it, Glenn, take Hollywood off of it and just say this, the Ravens drafted a wide receiver, 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Never made a Pro Bowl, had 1,000 yard season. We flipped him instead of paying him. He's malcontent. We flipped him for another first round pick.
Yeah, a better first round pick because he went 25. We got a 23rd for him.
Right. So a higher first round pick than he was drafted at for a guy that never made the Pro Bowl and was a 1 year, 1,000 yard.
And let's be honest, receiver. The Ravens were never going to give him 25 to 30 million a year after his 5th year option was expired anyway. So yeah, I mean, shout out. It was a win-win. The Cardinals needed him for many reasons, including just to appease their quarterback. But the Ravens were able to get, excellent value in return and address a position that, I know some people were kind of saying they didn't have necessarily a need at center with McCary and Tristan Colon. But to me, it was an absolute need because now McCary can go back to being, the Swiss Army knife and be the insurance policy for Ronnie Stanley at left tackle.
Absolutely. Well, before we move on from this subject, the other thing I want to talk about, which I think is important, is if we take a step back and look at the we'll focus on the wide receiver market. The NFL in general, players seem to be demanding more and being able to decide, use the leverage that they have to decide where they want to play. Like, look at the quarterbacks moving around, look at the wide receivers. Hollywood and A.J. Brown both traded on draft night. So, but I want to talk about the wide receiver group. These guys are getting paid more and more and more. For a while, D-Hop was the highest paid non-quarterback, right? Offensive non-quarterback or whatever. And we're talking about 25, 27, in some cases getting up to $30 million a year. So the percentage of money dedicated to wide receivers is going up. Do you think that this is a sustainable thing, or is this one of the things where, like, back in the day, the running back was always taken first in the draft, and now running backs are taken at the middle tail end of the draft? Every once in a while, you get a guy in the first round. Do you think it's like, the game to me seems cyclical in a certain way, right? Like, where not everything is high value except quarterback for the most part.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the wide receiver market right now? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, the question is, does it continue in this direction?
Yeah, like, I don't think it's sustainable.
Exploding?
You know what I mean?
I don't think so either, but at the same time, with the cap growing each year, in 5 years, is 30 million even that impactful?
Right.
If you're getting a player of the caliber and quality that some of these guys
but
are.
when we're talking about percentage, right? The cap's got to go up, because to me, the percentage of the cap allocation, it's right now it's swung too much in one way, right?
I agree. Yeah, 100%. I think it's going to be awfully challenging to have both on the team at the same time. One of these highly paid wide receivers as well as a highly paid franchise quarterback. I don't know how. You may have to make a choice, one or the other, or let your defense
look at what the
suffer.
Chiefs just had to do.
Exactly. They had to get. You think they wanted to get rid of Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's an absolute stud. He's the type of guy that changed the league. He's a guy that everyone was chasing to try and get another guy like him. So, yeah, I have my doubts on whether it's sustainable. I think that the big thing is what does what's his name from Green Bay who just went to the Raiders, the receiver.
Oh,
why am I blanking?
Parker.
Adams.
Yeah,
Devontae
Adams.
If Devontae Adams, it looks like the same Devontae Adams we've seen in Green Bay and shows out, and Tyreek Hill again does the same thing, opposite Waddle with Tua throwing the ball. If he shows out, then maybe it continues to go on. But if we see a massive drop in production from Adams, and we see maybe even Tyreek Hill kind of playing second fiddle behind Waddle, then maybe we start to see some teams hesitant to throw that kind of change around. Because you're right, that's $30 million for a receiver in a league where it seems like every year is a deep receiving class because of all the 7-on-7s, the flag footballs that's taken over youth sports. It just seems like every year there's a new batch of talented, big, fast receivers that it almost doesn't make a ton of sense to pay these guys.
Yeah, this isn't a super chat, but we'll allow him to put his comment up on the screen.
That's nice
here.
of you.
Do you think the Ravens are in the camp that's willing to pay a top wide receiver?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Not with this current offense. Maybe if they switch to a more spread you out offense and didn't rely so heavily on the run, and maybe, but not with this all. I think, to me, they've already made their choice, and that's paying the tight end who dominates the middle of the field. I think that's kind of their focus, is dominating the middle of the field. Now, if they find a big, strong receiver who can, get separation, who can high point a ball, who can get yak yards, then maybe. But right now, it seems like the focus is either on the tight end position or the tight end / receiver, like they've gotten in Isaiah Likely.
Yeah. And I'm excited we're going to talk about him, because in the post draft presser, they talked about him for an extensive period of time. So I'm excited to get into that. But yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think that they're there. But the other, before we move off this topic, one of the questions you asked me the other day was, how will this affect the Ravens in the long term? Will the Ravens get some sort of a stain or an asterisk?
Will this be the Browns effect? Like the media saying, don't go to the Browns. Their history, or they're the factory of sadness. They're trash. And that's why no free agents go there unless they overpay. Is this something, if they stick with Roman, that we could see becoming an issue for the Ravens attracting offensive players?
Specifically, I think wide receivers, right?
Pass catchers, yeah.
That's a really tough one for me, because
how long is Roman going to be here is a big question.
Big question, right? That's obviously a big question. But I think at the end of the day, the answer is no. If anyone is smart enough to simply look at Hollywood's numbers, like you said, top 10 in targets, right? We'll see what Bateman does this year. Obviously, Mark Andrews has had massive seasons under Coach Roman. So I would say right now, no. While I can also understand the argument for the other side, right now, no. If this trend continues, then I can see that. But I think that Hollywood Brown, I don't know. He's always had a sense of, I don't want to put words in a guy's mouth, but I've perceived it as a bit of entitlement since he's been in the league. Like, I deserve this. I deserve that. I'm a first round pick. This, that, me. Like you kind of mentioned him being a little bit of a me guy. And it's never, even in his best moments as a Raven, it didn't shake off. Like it was still there. You know,
look, he's had some big moments. I mean, we've been on here, defended him, what he's done. But I don't know. I don't like the I don't get the ball in the right way type of thing. It's like, well, how about, if you got the ball short, how about you make a guy miss and turn it into a long play like we see a lot of the great receivers doing? How about, just because you're not catching a deep ball, which, by the way, you dropped 3 guaranteed touchdowns in the Detroit game, which certainly would have helped his numbers. But even if you're not getting the ball in an ideal scenario for you, make the best of it. Make a guy miss, turn up field. I mean, just think of this. He got more targets per game and total than DK Metcalf. He got 2 more targets a game on average than Jamar Chase got. I mean, this is a guy who got more targets than Debo, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, T. Higgins. I mean, you can just go down the line of talented big name. A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper. I mean, you name it, he's pretty much out-targeted him. So, I don't know. I didn't want to get back into, I'm just frustrated by, the situation here. And I just hope it doesn't hurt the Ravens from attracting guys in the future. Michael says, we don't need a crazy number one receiver. In 2019, our number one receiver got 550 yards. We need efficiency. And I tend to agree with that. I think that's what matters most is getting points on the board and catching the ball when it's thrown your way. But you need talent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, a first rounder complaining about lack of opportunity is just ridiculous. Period. Right? I know they're different positions, and I know that I have a bias towards him because he's my favorite Raven right now. But when was Gus Edwards ever put in a situation to be the most successful ever?
Right.
When things didn't show up for him the way that they were made to, his talent is what showed on the screen. It was very clear. His talent, his hard work, his discipline, all these things turned small opportunities into him kicking down the door and obviously getting the paycheck that he got, which, Hollywood wants much more, and that's fine. Point is that he's done everything he can to maximize his value. Hollywood should take a lesson out of the old Gus Edwards book.
Yeah, and Michael's 100% right. They had the number one. Remember this, everyone. They had the number one offense in all of football, and it wasn't even close. By far the best offense in football.
Yeah, lapping the field.
Unanimous MVP, the guy who led the NFL in touchdown passes as well as touchdown passes from the pocket. And he was sitting, at least 4 fourth quarters and some halves of the third quarter. And Michael's right. Hollywood was our leading receiver that year. He had 580 yards receiving, and we had all that to go with it. So for everyone saying we need this, we need that, the other teams may, because that's how they're set up. But here in Baltimore, they can do things a little different and still have great results. Everyone wants us to spread it out and all this. Well, we know that with this offense, with the worst receiving core in the league, we can have the number one offense in football and the unanimous MVP. Do we know that for sure about any other offense, being brought here to Baltimore? The answer is no, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do want to give a shout out to a well-known commenter here in the chat here. While he's not providing a super chat, we will forgive him this time. Robert Pierney said, should we go after T.Y. Hilton? Interesting thought. My answer to that is simply, 1, can he stay healthy? And I have big concerns there. 2, they were in talks last year and he turned us down. So I don't know if the Ravens are going to go back then and bark up that, bark up that tree. I don't think it happens. I don't know if it's a fit, and I don't know if he'd want to play anywhere but Indianapolis at this point.
Yeah, and they just got Matt Ryan, so I'm sure he'd be happier there. I do think free agent receivers are going to have a hard time coming here unless they're overpaid, and we know the Ravens won't overpay. And I think a lot of that's kind of unfair. Rashawn Jones says he also had the audacity to say we only used him at the end to win us games. Andrew was more clutch than Brown, in my opinion. 100%. I mean, that's the part that rubbed me the wrong way. The exit comments, I disagree with him. I mean, I don't understand what he was getting at. The Ravens looked at, obviously he was unhappy. Apparently it's coming out that he was unhappy after year 2 in Baltimore, and they made a concerted effort to get this guy the ball in so many different ways. They tried to throw it over the top. They tried to get him the ball quick at the line of scrimmage. They even tried some handoffs, some jet sweeps and stuff like that. They tried to get him the ball in the intermediate. They tried to get this guy the ball in every way that they could, and he still wasn't happy. So, good riddance.
You know what this was, Glenn? This is a classic case of one of the partners trying everything they can to make their spouse happy, and they're just not with it anymore. So finally, the one that's been trying to make the other one happy says, all right, I'm done. You see the door? Yeah. Don't let it hit you with a good Lord split you, and I'm going to upgrade. All right, that's exactly, that's what it was at the end of the day. Hollywood found excuse after reason after reason after reason to be content instead of watering the grass where his feet stood.
Mm-hmm.
Period. It's just what it was.
Yeah, 100% agree. Let's see here. We got Ravens O's Nation. I do think we could use a deep threat. Doesn't have to be an insane wide receiver. Going to be easier for teams to key on the run with no deep threat. And I think they will add to the room.
Yeah,
I
don't think it's finished.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's an opportunity to still add a different type of guy. I think they got their big guys with the tight ends that they drafted and with Mark Andrews still being here. And I think they got some young talent on the roster, but I think there's an opportunity for them to certainly add to the position, whether that's through trade, or I think there's some cuts coming along the way here around the league. And I think they certainly have an opportunity to add some. But let's not forget, Devin Duvernay can absolute run. He ran a 4.3 something 40. And he can still be your deep threat. And Bateman, don't sleep on his speed. I know a lot of people are saying, well, he's not the burner. He's got enough juice to get by defenders and get down the field. So, but yeah, I think there's opportunity to grow.
And if it's cool, I think maybe let's talk about that for a little bit. Like you mentioned, wanting to talk about different position groups and kind of what the Ravens can do to upgrade that group and things like that. Not sure how you envision transition into that, but I have a list of available wide receivers right now.
Okay.
And we can talk about, the Ravens, who those that are available that could be a good fit for the Ravens. I think there's some intriguing names on here. Now, one that's been viral with the Ravens, of course, the past 2 years now, over 24 months, has been Julio Jones, which, we saw. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with that, in my opinion, because he can't stay healthy.
Plus, he's not the deep ball threat anymore.
Right. And yeah, he exactly. He's a shell of himself. Okay, hold on. We got another one coming in. I think this might be someone that Glenn. Here we go. Oh, Tommy boy. So we tried the wide receiver thing. It didn't work. We're going to go back to having 3 tight end sets dominating the middle of the field. Look, Tom Brady not Tom Brady. Who is it? Bill Belichick always talks about dominating the middle of the field.
Yeah, that's his most important thing, dominate the middle of the field.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm okay with it because people will say, oh, well, we're predictable. We're this, that, and the other. And that's fine. Like, true greatness is everyone knowing what you're going to do and you still being able to do it. You don't think people knew what we were going to do in 2019 when Lamar was in the pistol and he was going to run behind on 4th down in Seattle? You don't think they knew he was going to run behind Marshall Yanda?
Well, even if you know, there's obviously slight
right. There's
a team wants to attack the middle of the field. It's not like, oh, we know that, so we can stop it.
So we'll just eliminate it and not make it a thing anymore.
It's not that easy.
Right. So I agree here. I think we're going to see a lot more of going back to the true colors. So I agree with you, T.
Stay in the sweet zone. Stay in what Lamar does at such an elite level. That why not go towards his strengths rather than just trying to buoy up, perceived weakness. Britt House says $2 for Devon Williams from Oregon, our undrafted free agents. Let's talk. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to get into, because some of these guys are interesting. So,
well, let's table that just real quick.
We can come back. We'll circle back to it.
Britt, we will come right back to it, but I do want to get to this list. We talked about Julio Jones. Another name that's been around the Ravens for a while. I don't think stylistically is the best fit, but Jarvis Landry is another name that's out there. Will Fuller, T.Y. Hilton, Emmanuel Sanders, Allen Hurns, Deshaun Jackson. Those are the names to me that I think would make the most sense. Dede Westbrook. I'm trying to look down this list here.
The only issue is, how do you convince a guy to come here after at least the perception? I think it's an incorrect perception, but the perception is that, it's not a wide receiver friendly offense. That's I think it's going to be a tough point for the Ravens, which I think might lead the Ravens to have to trade for a guy who's maybe unhappy or underperforming at another team in order to bring in some help.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's only a few ways I think the Ravens, because of the perception that they get a guy like, I think Emmanuel Sanders would love to come here because there's a young group. Mm-hmm. Now, he's also not your burner. He's not your deep threat guy.
Yeah.
But he can teach the guys. Emmanuel Sanders, it can be a leader to that group. And I also think that he would love to come here because he wants to win. He doesn't care about numbers at this point, right? Like, he can make crucial catches. He can fill in that, like, Anquan Bolden-esque role where, like, we know where the ball's going on a crucial play. It's going to Mark. It's going to Sanders. And that's okay, right? It's about the plays, not about the volume. I think that's one way you get a player here through, like, hey, I want to win, and that's above all based on where you're at in your career. Or, of course, it's been injury-riddled and he's on the market for a reason. I think specifically of a Will Fuller, right? He's been paid by Houston, then paid by the Dolphins, and now he's on the market again. So he's been paid well and never really been able to stay healthy. But when he's healthy, I mean, everyone takes him in fantasy and they love it or they hate it, right? They love it for 2 weeks, hate it for 6 weeks, love it for 2 weeks, hate it for 6, right?
Yep. Sounds right.
So I don't know. I mean, those are the two that come to my mind. I think
Deshaun Jackson's a possibility because he's just
so
straight.
He's
just such a burner, though. He's still got the top end speed.
Did you see him in Vegas, though?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't be happy with any of those guys, honestly. I don't want any of them.
I think Sanders. You wouldn't want Emmanuel Sanders for the right price?
I don't think he fits a need here. Maybe if there's a rash of injuries, then you go out and grab him. But I think as long as everything stays currently how it is, I think you. I don't see what he fits. I think they're right. They need a burner, and they may have gotten one with some of these undrafted guys, which we'll
talk about that.
But Isaiah Yogi says, imagine 2019 with Linderbaum. That 100%. You imagine Yonda next to Linderbaum with the all-pro version of Ronnie Stanley, and then of course Big O on the right side. I mean, yeah, as good as that line was, if you would have had Linderbaum instead of McCary in it at center, whew, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want you to envision this. While I don't think that this will happen, if Ben Cleveland ever plays right guard and Daniel
Falele
plays right tackle, that's over 700 pounds of man.
Scary.
Yeah, that would just be death. I mean, the Warriors have their death lineup. And you imagine you Pat, going to the end of that line, Pat Ricard.
Oh, I know. Then you add 305 pounds of just pure muscle.
Oh, my gosh. That would be brutal. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of combinations that will get you excited. But, yeah, let's talk about this. I know, DK, you got this list. So, we'll get into this. Let's talk about the undrafted guys. All right, cool. All right.
Here we go. So, the Ravens have signed, at least to this point, it looks like around 18 undrafted free agents. This is a list that is constantly going to be updating and changing as we go on. But looks like they added some linebacker help in Charles Wiley. They signed Oregon quarterback Anthony Brown to be a camp arm, I'm assuming. Florida linebacker Jeremiah Moon. San Diego State offensive tackle Aaron Johnson, Oregon wideout Devon Williams, which I think somebody was just mentioning and excited about. I watched some tape on Zacoby McClain, the linebacker out of Auburn, and this guy hits like a ton of bricks. Mm-hmm. I think he may have some relation to Rolando McClain, if I was reading correctly. So that's kind of interesting. Ravens signed, NC State running back Ricky Person Jr., wide receiver Emeka Emezi. I'm probably butchering that. Now, Jimbo, I think it's Fago, Navy linebacker Diego Fago, I believe. I'm
Yeah.
very immature, so it's taken a lot of me to skip by that. Ravens signed Villanueva defensive back Denzel Williams, Cal wide receiver Trevon Clark, Michigan linebacker John Ross. Let's see. Stephen F. Austin, defensive lineman Rashad Nichols, Georgia State safety Chris Moore, and Mississippi State wide receiver Makai Polk, as well as Brodarius Ham from Auburn, an offensive lineman. Trey Ford is a quarterback. I'm not even sure from where. And then Slade Bolden, the Alabama wide receiver, the little Edelman type receiver, Slade Bolden. He's not going to blow you away, but he can get in the slot, make some catches, and make the most of what he gets. What did anything jump out at you at this list, Jimbo?
Well, one, the volume, like 18, I think that's a solid number. I would be interested to know where that falls amongst other undrafted, just the volume of undrafted rookies that we sign. Outside of that, how many Michigan guys are on here? I felt like you mentioned 2. Is there only one? Josh Ross.
Yeah, I think that's it.
But that's another one for me because that's 2 guys we've gotten, whether in the draft or undrafted, that McDonald knows. So I don't know. I mean, nothing groundbreaking here for me. I haven't done a ton of research on these guys, but the fact that people are excited about them, it just speaks to the Ravens' ability to get the best guys, not only in the draft, but the best undrafted guys. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Of course, we want these guys to stand out and have an opportunity. But to be honest with you, I'm not very hopeful, and I'm not counting on any sort of contribution offensively from an undrafted guy this year.
Well, let's remember that streak, Jimbo.
No, but like a significant contribution, not like making.
Oh yeah,
but like,
maybe
somebody
maybe not.
having like a Gus Edwards impact. Nah, I mean, or
you just don't see it. The only thing I could think of is you'd have to look at the positions that have the most need and kind of guess if maybe there's a rash of injuries. Yeah. I think that obviously Zakoby McClain, I should say, is one guy. Somebody put up in the comments here that he led the Auburn Tigers in tackles, which I guess shouldn't surprise you considering he was the inside linebacker. But I think he's got an opportunity if, look, he's getting a little older. Josh Bond's getting a little older, and there's obviously disappointment with the other guys, with Pat Queen, and they're trying to get Malik Harrison to maybe switch to outside backer, which would then leave a big hole backing up those 2 guys, and maybe Zakoby McClain can make a name for himself. A lot of people are excited about Emeka Emezi, the wide receiver, who's a big guy and can certainly go get the ball. I don't know a ton about a lot of these guys, but I guess there's an opportunity for all these guys to make the team, and then you got to make the most of it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? We've had Evan the agent on, and he talks about Hall of Fame reps, and that's what's got to be every single time for these guys. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, we'll be out in camp and give you guys the down low on any developments when it comes to all the guys, but certainly the ones that are, not on the radar, right? Not top picks or anything like that. But we've talked about wide receivers a lot so far, Glenn, and I know we're going to shift gears, but the last thing I want to ask, because DK posed a question here, way too early over-under on Bateman's receiving yards this upcoming season. You think he breaks 1,000?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah?
100%. I think with a healthy Lamar, you're talking 1,200 yards, and I think Hollywood would have gotten there with a healthy Lamar because he was certainly on pace to do so. So, yeah, 100. I think that's easy money as long as both those guys stay healthy. Then you're talking 1,300 yard season.
It's going to be interesting. Bateman's looked really good, and I've also liked. He is the antithesis of Hollywood Brown, the way he speaks at the podium.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. He is team first, and he gets a lot of that from what's the coach's name? Jeez Whiz, up in Minnesota, Flake.
Oh, Fleck, PJ
Fleck. Yeah, that's what it is.
Row the boat, right?
Row the boat, man. Row the boat is the hardest sport to have an individual superstar. Because there's really no way to tell, right?
Yeah. Who's the strongest? Who's the weakest? Yeah. All right. Well, let me, if unless you have somewhere else you need to go,
let's do it.
I want to talk about some potential cuts or trades after the draft, because it's obvious when you take a punter in the 4th round, right? I mean, I think Sam Cook's days are certainly numbered here. The question is this something that, he wants to continue to pursue, or is this something that maybe he's already discussed with the Ravens and that they were waiting for this moment to not tip their hand? And, because if Cook were to leave and announce his retirement or anything like that, then of course it would make them much more likely and obvious to take a punter. So with his name out there, I think it's obvious he's gone. But what's not so obvious, with Kyle Hamilton coming at safety, a lot of people are predicting that they trade Chuck Clark to maybe address another position. I saw that Bradbury in New York is a possible trade chip. Him and Darius Slayton, I saw, was a trade that some people were predicting that Slayton and Bradbury for Chuck Clark and maybe a pick. What do you think that Chuck Clark is guaranteed to make this roster?
100%. There's 0% chance Chuck Clark gets traded. And this is why. It was very clear to me the way Eric DeCosta answered the questions, and even John, when it came to Sam Cook. He talked about not wanting to talk about the pick and wanting to celebrate Sam and, this, that, and the other, and all the complimenting and things like that. As soon as they, there was no asking about Chuck Clark being traded, but the Ravens are already talking about ways that they can scheme all 3 safeties on the field.
Yeah.
And they talked about it multiple times in the pressers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's very little chance you take your guy who's the green dot. Who are you giving the green dot to? You giving it to Marcus Williams as first? You giving it to Patrick Queen? Don't you dare give that thing to Patrick Queen.
You need a 3-down guy.
Vines?
No, he's not a 3-down guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you giving
Kyle Hamilton, the rook?
No.
Marcus Williams?
That's what I was saying. First year in the defense? No, I don't think.
But
he's the
deep guy too. You usually want a guy is a middle. It's
right.
usually the linebacker because he can talk to both.
But Patrick Queen just can't seem to get his crap together and doesn't like film study. So, yeah,
well, some guys just don't have it, Jimbo, and he might just not have it. Who knows?
See, I don't want to assume that.
Okay, well, yeah, because you don't want that to be true,
right? But so I think Chuck is too valuable.
Yeah, well, he was our second leading tackler, and he's the green dot. So that alone makes it kind of tough to get rid of the guy. I tend to agree with you.
It seems like DK disagreed. DK, yes, agreed or disagreed? Agreed. Oh, okay. I thought you were disagreeing down there. I was like, DK, let's make a bet right now. Somebody's getting eyebrow shaved.
Yeah, I don't see him going, because then you're one injury away from being, pretty tight. So I think they keep him. I think they for sure keep him as well.
Imagine
but the other position.
Imagine instead of having Chuck Clark, you have Darius Washington coming in. Because Chuck's gone.
Well, I think Geno might be up in there too, and Geno had some moments, but yeah, neither one are Chuck Clark.
Yeah. So sorry,
old Stonehands Chuck Clark. All right, so the other position that has me kind of curious about, they double dip again in round 4 at tight end. They take Charlie Kohler out of Ohio State and Isaiah Likely, who's a guy I think everyone like. It's this is the classic tight end move here, right? It's the We take who was it, Dixon in the 4th, and then we double down and we take Pitta, and Pitta ends up being better. Then in 2019 we take what's his name, Hurst. Then we take Andrews, he ends up being better. Now we take Kohler.
You right now?
No, you're good. Then we take Kohler, and then we take Likely, and a lot of people are saying he's going to be the better guy. But is Nick Boyle on his way out? He's expected, I think, $7 million they could save if they got rid of him, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
That's a big chunk of change. So, yeah, please double check to make sure I'm not speaking crazy. But it's like they got 4 tight ends on the roster. These 2 are guaranteed to make the roster. Obviously, Mandrews isn't going anywhere. Ricard can do a lot of the same blocking that you get from Nick Boyle, and you just extended Ricard, so you got to make him worth it. You can't just put him on the bench half the time, and you just paid the guy. So you got to use him.
So we would save no money
this
year because he has a $7 million cap hit and a $7 million dead cap. So
it would be washed. It would be nothing.
Yeah. No. I mean,
it would cost us $7 million.
If we could pay him his salary, or we would pay, it would be allocated to dead cap, right? So we would save
he's not going anywhere, but Josh Oliver is gone for sure. No doubt about it. Sorry, Josh.
He's already on the picket line, dude. He's looking for another gig, man. He's out there in interviews. He's got the suit and tie on. He's
But so that means it's a guaranteed 4 tight ends is what you're telling me, which says to me, then they aren't getting another wide receiver because there's already, in my opinion, 5 receivers on this roster. And that would mean if you bring in another receiver, you're either cutting Prochet or you're cutting Tylan Wallace because you ain't cutting Duvernay. You ain't cutting, it's just who can you cut? I mean.
Yeah, and I just put up the link for the salary cap for Boyle. So check my math if you want, but I feel pretty good about that there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a numbers game at some point, right? Let's see. What does Michael say? I don't want to do Boyle like that anyway. Fair enough. And I think he has a lot of value. I think he's honestly, when healthy, he's an underrated pass catcher and underrated open field runner. No one wants to get in front of that horse.
No
one.
But is he the old Nick Boyle?
Right. That's the big question.
Because some are saying he'll never be the Nick Boyle that we paid and fell in love with here.
But cutting him is not an option because we save exactly $0.
Yeah, that's disappointing because I could have sworn
the following year we would, because if I'm looking at this correctly, his cap hit would be $8 million, and if the dead cap is $2 million, so that means that we would save $6 million if we
we would have $2 million in dead cap and $6 million in savings. So overall $4
next
million.
Year, not this year.
Right. Yeah. So $4 million in savings overall if they get rid of him next year. So, well, I guess he's going to be here.
He's a Baltimore Raven.
He's a Baltimore
Raven. Do you
Raven.
think that they try and
like
get one
him
of the guys
he's
on practice squad? On the practice squad, I mean, or maybe they try and go light at another position. Like if they get in a situation with a wide receiver they really like, that it just works out, falls in their hands, they'll just have to go light somewhere else, right?
Yeah, and it's likely. Yeah, I'm trying to think of where that would be. They got a lot of safeties in the room right now, Jimbo.
Yeah, you go somewhere in the secondary. I mean,
Geno is Ardarius, Geno, Stevens. I mean, are all 3 of those guys going to make the roster when you got Hamilton, Chuck Clark, and Williams ahead of them?
Jeez.
And Billy Seal says likely to get the Boykin role, in my opinion. Well, I think if he does, he'll be a hell of a lot better at it. I love these Steeler fans trying to think they got something in Miles Boykin. I can't wait to see that goof low point a ball that's thrown deep, because this guy, nobody catches the ball at his belly button like Miles Boykin.
No, it's going to be great when Kenny Pickett throws a deep bomb on a go route to Miles Boykin and his
Kyle Hamilton.
I'm pretty sure his previous teammate, Kyle Hamilton, either picks it off or just destroys him.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton will show him how to high point a ball as he's flailing his arms and falling to his backside.
Yeah.
Let's see. Michael says they're going to move Ardarius to slot corner. Well, the problem is that seems like where all the safeties are headed because that's what I've heard about Jeremy Stevens. That's what I've heard, about Kyle Hamilton will play some slot. I've heard Chuck Clark will go in there. I've heard a lot of guys are going to the slot. But the problem is there's only one slot. And so how many guys are you going to throw at that one position? And wouldn't you want to have a true corner in the slot and not necessarily a converted tight end? Jimbo, mature. Please.
I didn't say anything. I said
smiling
nothing.
like a child. Look at that big goofy look.
I said nothing at all. But yes, the answer to your question is yes. We would like to have a natural corner there instead of having to switch. And I don't think you mentioned this. You might have. Maybe I didn't hear it. Like Brandon Stevens.
Yeah. No, I mentioned him.
Yeah. I mean, like, people just gloss over him like it's no big deal. Brandon Stevens was a third-round pick and played his butt off in moments last year. Played a ton, played his butt off, and showed serious progression, right? Like, trust me, he's not an asset that the Ravens are just going to say, no, we got Kyle Hamilton now, Brandon Stevens, see you later. No, they're going to continue to develop him, find a role for him, because we need, the team. The best teams are not just top-heavy teams, right? Of course, everyone looks at the Rams, says, look at all these stars. Rams have plenty of depth. Look, Cooper Kupp was not a first. He was, a third-round pick?
Something like that. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, so, the list goes on and on. But, it's going to be really interesting to see what other position groups do you see as areas where we need to make improvement and areas where there could be additional cuts?
Well, the big thing to me is you still got to add to the cornerback room. I love Jalen Armour-Davis. I fell even more in love with him after I did a deep dive into how talented this guy was. And I watched, and I think DK kind of pointed this out. He did an interview about 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the draft with Chris Sims, where it was just Chris Sims and Jalen Armour-Davis one-on-one for it was a long interview. And you want to talk about a guy who is so mature. So here's what he's about, Jimbo. Ball and family. That's it. He said, if I'm not balling, then I'm at home with my child and with I think it was his wife. I think he said, I think he's married or it's his fiance, one of the two. But that's all, and so mature the way he talks. He's just mature beyond his years.
Sounds like he's talking about me, dude. Just I'm either out balling or I'm at home, dude. I'm at home.
Yeah, exactly. It really sounds like kind of. But the maturity at his age, and he talked about how he's like, are you the most unknown Alabama player? And he's like, I think I am because he kind of flew under the radar, but Chris Sims was in love with this guy, had him as his number 3 overall corner in the whole draft. And he said, you just can't get open on him. You just cannot get open on him. He's got height, weight, speed. He'll tackle. So I'm excited about the guys. And then Demarian Williams, admittedly, don't know as much about him from Houston. It was kind of funny. This is like the Brandon Stevens of last year. He wasn't even on PFF's big board, right. and they go get him in the 4th round. Let's hope it turns out in a similar way because it certainly worked out with Brandon Stevens. But just adding Demarian Williams and Jalen Armour-Davis, in my opinion, isn't enough because you got Marlon Humphrey you feel good about, Marcus Peters you feel good about, and then after those guys, Jalen Armour-Davis and Demarian Williams you feel good, but I don't feel good about Kevon Seymour. I don't feel good about Iman Mark. People are talking about Biggie's going to come up. Can you remember a single instance where Biggie or Iman Marshall, however you want to call him, has made any plays?
You don't get a nickname because no, you don't get a nickname for free. No,
like what has he done? And even in practice, a camp whisper, anything? Nothing. So how can we?
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, yeah, you can't put any stock in. That's worse than putting stock in Ronnie Stanley. Because he's literally never available. I mean, there's no exaggeration here. He's never available. So,
and they still got to add to that room, man. Kevin Tolliver, Kevon Seymour, no. Yeah. Robert Jackson, So you got to make moves, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Laura Roten says, "What a weekend! I give the Ravens an A+." A lot of people giving them an A+, Jimbo.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So let's talk about that. We talked a little bit about the back end of the draft, and we've done that a little bit. But can we talk about the top end of the draft and reevaluating now? Because I don't think we've talked about this on air yet. Because we have on the phone, but definitely not on air.
Oh, I'm glad you said something. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk about how we feel now, right? Mm-hmm. Like we said some things in our draft wrap up, but let's dig into this thing. Kyle Hamilton is a Baltimore Raven, Glenn. Mm-hmm. The Ravens drafted a safety that is 6'4", 220 pounds, athletic freak. Mm-hmm. Incredibly smart, incredibly dedicated, rangy, can do everything. There is not a single thing that he can't do.
Yeah.
I mean, so how I'm feeling really excited about this. I was excited about a draft night, and I've only gotten more and more excited about what he's going to look like in our defense. How are you feeling about Kyle Hamilton now, today?
Yeah, I'm more excited about him now for sure than I was that night. I mean, I didn't spend a ton of time looking at him because I did probably roughly 30 mock drafts on the simulator, and not a single one of those was Kyle Hamilton available at 14. Not one of all those. And them simulators can get kind of crazy sometimes. Not a single one had him. So it kind of makes me, so I didn't look at him. But then I circled back. I looked into him a bunch, and the guy. The funny thing is, the only knock against him is they said, he ran a slow 40 time. First of all, he ran, I think, a 4.59.
Yeah.
Just to put that in perspective, I looked up Ed Reed, who I'm not comparing him to, but he ran a 4.57.
Yeah.
So let's just, and I watched the 40 and from a different angle where it was straight on to watch him. It's pretty clear he didn't go the conventional route where you hire a track coach just to ace the 40 time, because I don't know, it didn't look like he was training with a track coach, put it that way. When he took off, first of all, he went crooked. He took a wide route and then had to circle back to get in between the hash marks that he was running in between. So he didn't even take a good line at it. And he just didn't look. He looked so much faster when he had his helmet and shoulder pads on than he did running in those shorts. So what I'm excited about is the versatility this guy brings. When you look at the AFC North, there's tons of weapons and great quarterbacks. The AFC is so loaded with quarterbacks. I don't know if there's ever been a conference this loaded with top-end quarterbacks. They are going to have such a versatile defense with this guy being the Swiss. He can play. I mean, he can just do like you said, he could be your deep third. He could be your dime linebacker. He could be your nickel. He can play some outside corner. He's done it. I mean, this guy has literally done everything. He can be your ultimate. They can disguise what they're doing so good with this guy. I mean, I couldn't be happier with him.
Yeah, 100% there. The one thing I would add as well is that relative to his position group, he's taller. So there's a chance that he's a longer strider. And a lot of times longer strides don't necessarily benefit somebody running a shorter, like a 40 or something like that. It just takes a little bit of time to get up to your top speed. Doesn't mean it's there. Here's a long strider, right? So
and false steps, Jimbo. A fast guy takes one false step. It doesn't matter how fast you are, where Kyle Hamilton doesn't do that.
Exactly. So certainly, I mean, and once again, it's relative. What we're comparing him to are the peers in his position group, right?
Yeah.
And so I think he'll be just fine. I'm looking forward
Imagine him
to
guarding a tight end.
Yeah.
When you don't have a side, like you won't have a speed advantage. You won't have a height advantage likely.
This is my favorite thing about him is I've talked about this before on the show, and I have personal experience. The only reason I'm a big believer in this. When you are a multi-sport athlete, you have different lenses to look at to solve a problem in a different sport. The way that he plays defense, when you can be a successful defender in basketball and learn to move your hips and keep a defender in front of you or an offensive player in front of you without fouling, without being too handsy, keeping someone in between you and the basket, keeping, you're having a head on swivel, all those things translate. And they're so much harder on a basketball court than they are on a football field. Mm-hmm. So if you can do that, his dad being a pro basketball player in Europe, and then him growing up thinking he was going to play basketball and that was going to be his thing. Gets me really excited because you're talking about a situation where he's going to have to guard someone that is athletically beneath him. He's athletically superior to them. And then he has this other lens by which he views defense.
Yeah.
And it's so cool and exciting for me. But I also want to talk about our second first round pick, because I think he was a bit more controversial. I think.
Yeah.
In that I know a lot of people wanted to go receiver. So I just want to mention before I ask you, I think that Linderbaum is a slam dunk. We've had time after time, review after review, person after person talk to us about how well he grades as a prospect and how there are no holes in his game. Yeah, he might be a little light. Once again, everyone talks about he's sticky, he has leverage, he's powerful, he knows how to move guys bigger than him. I think that we've also heard it before. If he played a different position, he's a top 5 draft pick. That's all you got to say for me, right? You look at the kid, you watch him on tape, you see what type of person he is, see what type of worker he is. And all offseason, he's been working with Marshall Yonda. I'm sure he'll continue to do that. This kid I would be tempted to say that there is a decent chance that him and Kyle Hamilton could end up making the same amount of Pro Bowls. There's a decent chance of that. I think this kid has that much ability. What are your thoughts on Linderbaum now?
So hyped to get him. And it's silly and I'm glad though that they talked about his lack of length and thinking he might be a little light, because it's the reason he's fell to 25. You talk about a guy they said is the best center prospect PFF has seen since they started. I mean, that's got to be saying something. And I don't understand why people devalue the center position. This is a guy who touches the ball every single play.
Yep.
And is a guy, the quickest way and best way to disturb a quarterback in the pocket is interior pressure. So I don't understand why there's this undervaluing of the center position. I think it's silly, and honestly, it benefited the Ravens in a big way. You talked about multi-sport athletes. Well, what sports would you rather if you could pick the other sports you'd want your center to play, I think you'd go with wrestling. And the dude was a monster at wrestling. There's video of him pinning Tristan Wirfs, who was the all-pro left tackle last year. He got pinned. He played discus and he did the shot put. So when they talk about the strength of this guy's hands, well, there's no mystery where it comes from. I mean, this guy gets his hands on you. It don't matter if you're, this big hulking figure, because he just eliminates you. And people can say his arm length. he's so quick off the ball. He gets inside these guys who may have length. And then what good is length when someone's up inside your pads?
When you're in a phone booth.
Exactly.
And he's just mauling you.
They used to say the same thing about every Tyson opponent. They're too long. Well, Tyson would easily get inside their length and use it against them, which I think Tyler Linderbaum does in a fantastic way. So I think that fans will be excited once they see the guy strap up his chin strap and start pushing dudes around. There's going to be this run game that was already historic and ridiculous is going to take it to a whole nother level with this guy in the center.
Yeah, in addition to those guys in the backfield coming back with a vengeance. 100%. I'm so stoked. He's a 6-sport athlete, Glenn. I didn't realize you could be a 6-sport athlete.
Yeah,
apparently in Iowa. I think it's because he did multiple sports in track, so they consider.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, the javelin, the discus, and the
but
the
either way,
shot.
Shoot, just give it to him. 6 sports, dude. You did it all, my man. Like,
yeah, he's a
insane.
beast.
Yeah.
Shout out to Todd Heap here. Shout out to Todd. Todd. Love Todd. Falele is so huge. Why would we not use him as a nose tackle in third and short?
Hey, Glenn, really quickly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the way you say his last name is Faalele or Faalele.
What did I say?
Give it a try.
What did I say?
Faalele.
And what is it supposed to be?
The A there's 2, each A makes an individual sign.
Faalele.
There you go. Or Faalele.
Faalele.
Yeah, there you go.
I can imitate, but that's
nice.
Bad. So what's your thoughts on Faalele being go ahead, Jimbo.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got guys that do this, right? The kid that we drafted in the 3rd round is also a monster, almost as big, and I hate that I'm forgetting his name right now.
Travis Jones.
There you go. Travis Jones.
I'm going to talk about him next.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, Michael Pierce is an absolute fire hydrant.
Calais Campbell's pretty good.
Yeah, so we got guys there. We don't need it. Now, I wouldn't mind putting him at fullback.
I was going to say, he did spend some time at fullback and even quarterback, which is kind of fun to watch him there. So the guy's got ball skills. He can move. Yeah,
wouldn't it be fun to see him and then lead blocking and give the ball to Pat Ricard or give the ball to Gus Edwards?
There's no doubt that Daniel Faalele is now our extra tackle, and he's going to be lined up in the tight end spot. And you imagine that guy next to Morgan Moses, and then, Pat Ricard is leading the block, and then Gus Edwards is cleaning it up. I mean, it gets you excited. There's just no doubt about it. But I want to talk about, and we can circle back because I'm excited about Ajabo too, but I have to spend a little bit of time on Travis Jones because this is a guy that when we did our draft reaction, we were reliant at that very moment for that video on PFF's evaluation of the kid. And I'm not sure how they came away with that, with their particular take on him, because every other scouting report I've read has been the contrary. They kind of described him as having a lack of athleticism. And we relayed that information. And Jimbo, we were clearly misled by PFF because every other draft expert, if you want to call him, has raved about the athleticism he brings at his size and has really just talked about how he's just raw. I mean, you're talking about UConn, who might be the worst football program in Division I. They are hot, steaming garbage. Well, what that means is you get a lack of coaching. So while some people who come out of Alabama kind of get this bad rap saying they may have peaked because they know they've gotten the best of the best coaching, how much better can this kid get when he's already getting this great coaching? Well, Travis Jones has had the worst coaching in all of football in college. So the fact that he was that good and has so much potential because he's now going to be getting excellent coaching, and our defensive line coach was on the table saying, I want this kid. So he's going to take him under his wing. This guy, Travis Jones, has a chance. First of all, he's going to be a starter, but he's got a chance to be a hell of a player in the interior of this defense.
You said he's going to be a starter?
I think he's going to be a starter week 1.
So does he play? I'm trying to envision how this works. Does he play next to Pierce?
I think they're going to look to use Calais Campbell in a role where he doesn't play so many snaps. I think they overused him last year, and I think they want to use him a little bit less so they can have a healthy, juiced up version in big moments for Calais Campbell. So I think Michael Pierce, obviously he's had issues with staying on the field with his physical size. And so I think it's going to be a healthy rotation. But Travis Jones has an opportunity. He has got elite quickness for that size. I think, and his club, he'll smash you in the shoulder and knock you on your ass if you're a guard. I mean, I'm just so excited about what this guy will do with the NFL program, NFL coaching, NFL diet. I just think he's going to be one of the biggest steals of this draft.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I remember you lamenting the fact that we just didn't have a ton of good information on him at the time. So it prompted me as well to go back and just watch some stuff on the kid and see him move and see him work. And there's, I think what happened there, and the Ravens, of course, because Eric DaCosta might be Wizard 2.0, right? He might just be. Certainly is the understudy of the Wiz himself, or the Oz himself. But one of the things is everyone fell in love with Jordan Davis because of the measurements, because of the tape, and so you start to forget about other guys. And I think that was a classic situation here with him, and I'm really looking forward to it as well. We think about the days when our line. You talk about 2019, wasn't Pierce on the team when that was a year when Pierce and Williams?
I think that was his final year here.
Yeah, they were on the team. They'd be on the field in instances for the same time. You got Pierce and Travis on the field at the same time. Just that rotation. Talk about Pierce, Travis, Campbell, Wolf, Washington, and Broderick Washington. I mean, all those guys. Metabike, he's a different flavor than those guys. Yeah, but he's in that room. So. Whew, it's a scary group, Glenn. Scary group,
deep group, no doubt about it.
But let's go back though, if it's cool. Let's talk about Ajabo for a second, because I think one of the things we haven't talked about a ton tonight is the edge position, right? Where I'm so excited about Ajabo, just seeing his passion for coming to the Ravens and how excited he was for that. I mean, that just was the cherry on top to. Just watch the film on this kid. Watch his strength, speed, flexibility, bend, all these things, and productivity in big moments. Him and Adafe know each other. They're friends. They played in high school together. The idea of them coming off the line together is really exciting, but I don't think we see it week one. So obviously I want to talk about him, but I also want to talk about that group as a whole.
Well, if DK could effort to find, I just saw that the Ravens placed some sort of a exclusive tag on Justin Houston. Oh, there! Look at that. I didn't even. How did he know?
He's best in the business, bro.
DK reads minds, bro. I didn't even know he was putting this up. Honestly, I had no idea.
Mean? Honestly, I don't think I've seen this.
Apparently,
before.
What it means is that if. I know what this means. Once training camp starts, apparently we now have exclusive negotiating rights with Justin Houston. But I'm not exactly sure what the downside of using it. Here we go. It says if a player signs with a new team before July 22nd or the first day of training camp, whichever is later, the signings would count towards the NFL's compensatory fund. So,
nice.
But what's the downside? Because it's not heavily used.
Well, I think it becomes useless after this day, really, is what it is. It's like.
But why don't we see, only us, the Chiefs also placed it on Melvin Ingram. But that particular thing hasn't even been used by any team in the NFL since 2020. So why aren't more teams doing this? Is it just because the Ravens are so good as getting comp picks?
Maybe a lot of teams, maybe it's just not very common that when you're in a situation with a guy that you're not willing to sign early on in free agency, usually your free agents, you're signing to a big deal or you're not. Like, this is kind of a unique situation where we want him. We don't want him long term. We're not going to give him a bag. Yeah. Right. And
it only guarantees him, I think, 10% more than what he got with us last year. It guarantees him 110% of the salary he got from us last year,
which is the max.
Which is like $1 million. He only got $1 million from us, Jimbo.
Right. So. I just think it's kind of a rare scenario in where the player is in his career, what the market is for that player.
So he'll be here.
Yeah, right, exactly. Unless he just retires. But I also want to get to let's see.
Here we go. If they don't, go ahead, Jimbo.
If they don't sign by the deadline, the teams would retain exclusive negotiating rights to the respective players at 110% of their 2021 salaries, according to NFL's collective bargaining agreement.
So I don't see the negative. That's the only thing that's confusing.
So you're just wondering why
there's a downside to something, but
yeah.
It seems like it's just a free way to
Well,
guarantee.
it has to be a guy that you're only going to sign for one more year, right? Because other guys, you're going to want to your other free agents, you're negotiating multi-year deals, right? If he's coming off a rookie deal, you're
maybe that's the case.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just kind of a rare instance where the player is in his career, where the team is in need for the position.
But it seems like a savvy move by the Ravens.
It definitely does. Turning over every leaf is we would expect nothing less. Dan Wald 80. Shout out for the super chat here. Appreciate it. 1, why didn't any team offer a pick for Huntley? Well, we don't know if they did or not. Honestly,
and that's what he kind of touches on.
Just because they don't admit it, teams would give a left ball for a Lamar Jackson. So why not? I think that's what that is.
Yeah.
Or half of Lamar.
Nut. I think it's a nut. If you know what he's
left
getting
nut
at.
for a Lamar Jackson. So why not half a nut? Snoop, an Insta Vibe game changer. Okay, so let's stop there. I'm trying to dissect all that. Shout out Dan Wald 80 there. We don't know, right? Like, we don't know if they did or not. But I think it's more about the Ravens aren't just going to give this kid up. They found a kid that fits perfectly for what they need.
Right, and I think there's also not necessarily the biggest market. Remember, we love what Huntley did here. We thought he came and he played okay, but he did go winless, right? He beat Chicago, right? When his first start.
Did he? Oh, right. He
But then Lamar came back, and then he lost the rest of the starts. And then Johnson actually, so he didn't even finish. He didn't even start all the game. I think that Huntley, while he's a good fit here in Baltimore and a good backup for Lamar, I think his most value probably is here in Baltimore. I don't see a ton of teams. I don't see a ton of teams offering up picks that would make the Ravens go, yeah, we're going to give up a backup who now has play experience and fits kind of perfectly with what we do, unless they were overwhelmed by a pick. And I don't see a team overwhelming them with a pick. Now, as far as number 2 here, will ALJ run for 1,000 yards this year? That's a big question, because a lot of people are saying, does this mean we're going back to that offense in 2019 where we saw Lamar run a ton and the team run a ton in general? Do you think that the team's starting to move towards that direction of asking him, look, sorry, we're going to have to ask you to run it a lot again?
That is a tough question. I still think the answer is no. Well, all right. I'm going to say no, but I think Lamar Jackson will have – look, at 2019, the season was magical, not because of the volume of his runs. It was because of the impact.
Effectiveness,
Right, the big plays that he had, the big chunk plays, and the big moment plays. I think we need that. We don't need the other stuff. Let's let the running backs and let's let the passing game, the short passing game, do the other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But, so I don't think that the volume even needs to be there. It needs to be there enough to be dynamic. Lamar
to
can't
keep the team off balance, the defense off balance. Yeah,
right. And I think
he's the most important one.
Yeah,
in my opinion, the threat of him possibly pulling it out and going is the most important threat of all of it. It sets everything else up, but I do think it's less volume and more efficiency with it.
Yeah, it's about getting it right, the timing of it and the impact of it, and when you do it, make it count.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
when
it
isn't working,
20 carries in a cloud of dust.
And when it isn't working, Lamar, I love you to death, but just scoot out of bounds, my man. Like Lamar loves, dude, he's a physical player. He loves to put his shoulder down, and he's not afraid of it. And like, I love him for that, but I also want him to be here long term. And then the last one says, will Lamar be sacked less than 5 times this year? No,
unless you mean 5 times a game. Definitely be sacked more than 5 times total. We hope that it's not.
Can we just stop the show real quick and shout out Sherry Milan for giving us $100 super chat? Thank you, Sherry. Much appreciated. Love the support. I think if I'm not mistaken, Sherry was the one that also did when Sarah came on. Sherry, please correct me if I'm wrong, but thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you. Thank you. Going up on the wall, Sherry. Might be a special place for you now.
Wow. Yeah, that was very generous. Thank you, Sherry. I wish she had more of a comment that way we could discuss it, but
anything you want to put in there, Sherry.
We'll put it up there. Michael says the cap was down last year, so Houston signed for a minimum. So did Ingram. So now they only have to pay 10% more than 2.3. Yeah, I mean, it's a genius move. I'm just surprised it's not used more often by most teams, and that this is kind of the first I'm hearing of it when it doesn't sound like there's a ton of negatives here. So, yeah, excited about it. They could get this guy for an absolute bargain, and he could continue to groom and be a mentor for these guys.
Yeah.
Well, hey, who knows? Maybe with McDonald at DC, he gets some more opportunities for one-on-one pass rush.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see what happens there and what the change in productivity, like if that will manifest itself, if the change in McDonald taking over the helm will manifest itself in increased productivity for that position. That'll be interesting because it's been a long time since we've had a double-digit sack guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
been quite some
Judon
time.
was never a double-digit guy. Who I'm trying to just think off the top of my head.
Was it
Suggs
Suggs?
the last double-digit sack guy we had?
I think he was, dude.
I mean, that's pretty
sad.
embarrassing, you know?
That's kind of sad. Now, I do agree that 10 sacks is 10 sacks, whether it all comes from one guy or it comes from the collection. But, yeah, that is kind of surprising. To see
and
shout
out to the chat. Shout out to the chat for shouting out Sherry in here.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, go
Sherry
ahead. Sorry,
does get a salute. Yeah, so and Sherry did confirm. It looks like yes, that was her as well back
Thank you.
With
and Sarah is on vacation, Sherry. We're gonna get her thoughts and everything on the draft and where the Ravens are post-draft and things. She's on vacation right now, but once she gets back, she told me she's gonna come on. So we got
and by the way, keep on the lookout. Have a big show dropping tomorrow with Devin Washburn from CBS Sports. Forgive my audio, please, because I didn't realize this mic was off. And it was only getting me through the laptop mic, so I kind of sound like crap. But the interview was excellent nonetheless. And I'm still blaming Jimmy for not being there to save my audio. Travis says the truth. Trade Chuck and a second for Debo. That this is
it's not even close.
Well, my whole thing, it's not enough value for the Niners to make that move. But let's say they were trade. I'm not the biggest fan of getting Debo, and here's why. He doesn't want to run the ball anymore. He's done with that. And he's going to want $30 million, after this coming season or the next season. So, I don't like that.
I'm sure he wants a re-up immediately, right?
He wants some security. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, that's going to hit next year. I mean,
he's got double the drop rate of Hollywood, and we were annoyed by Hollywood's drops. Now, he'll give us a hell of a lot more in the yak. So, I do think that even in the same role as Hollywood,
they have nothing in common with
they're
with the ball
opposite receivers. Yeah, they are opposite. You talk about one guy who does it all after the ball in his hand, another guy who does it all without the ball in his hands in Hollywood. It's two opposite guys, but I do think it would take some more than that for Debo. But I'm not the biggest fan of getting Debo or any real receiver unless he's a specific type of receiver, like an AJ Brown type, maybe.
Well, this one is a bit more intriguing to me. I mean, not crazy intriguing to me, but still more than Debo. And Marcus Barnes says, Glenn James, is there any way we could trade for Michael Thomas? The reason I'm bringing this up is because we know Michael's contract details.
Yeah.
We don't have to trade for him and then re-up him, right? I think he has a few more years left on that deal, which at the time was a mega deal that the Saints gave him, which looks much more manageable at this point. So, but he has the ankle. I don't know what's going on with Michael Thomas. He's just seemed to kind of become an afterthought, right? Since the ankle and since Drew Brees retired, it's kind of like,
yeah. I'm not sure what's left of him. I don't know if that ankle is ever really going to return, to normal, and that way he can go back to being his old self. Hey, I don't want to take a shot on him. He feels too much like a Julio Jones of last year.
Interesting. Ooh. So
maybe a guy who's a little done, a little past his prime, and living off what he.
Yeah, but Michael's not that old, right?
No, but when's the last time he was relevant on the field? I mean, you're talking 2019 or was it 2019? I think it was his last year. That was the year where he went absolutely bonkers, I think, with Drew Brees. But 2019 feels like an awful long time ago.
He's 29 years old.
Yeah, it feels like he's older. No, you're right. It does feel like he's older. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of it, but depends on the cost. Dan Wald 80 says, shout out to Sherry. No doubt about it. LJ going for 1,000 this year and 4,000 passing. Well, I think he was on pace for doing that last year before the injury.
Yeah.
In the Miami game, which we try not to bring up too much.
And he was going to be the first one in the history of the NFL to do it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
First one in ever.
First one in ever.
Man, What?
No, I'm really tempted to break out the Sherry song every time I see Sherry. I'm so happy.
Sherry, baby, Sherry.
You like that? Yeah. We see us
DK is not
harmonizing.
impressed. DK was not at all impressed. Mandrew's going for 1,000. JK blowout season. Side note: our squirrel eater gonna wreck this year. Who is the? Oh, that's right, Cleveland. I'm like, who is the squirrel eater? How can I forget that? It's embarrassing. Yeah, I think all that is 100% possible and on the table here, no doubt about. Now, honestly, of those predictions, I think the least I feel good about right now is the squirrel eater, Benjamin Cleveland. Actually,
the squirrel eater.
I'm not. It's not working anymore. But I feel, of course, Mark Andrews is definitely going over 1,000. JK, I absolutely agree, he's going to have a breakout season.
Yeah,
and I like LJ going for 1K and 4K through the air better than I even have confidence that Cleveland takes that job and runs with it. But are you hoping that he is the guy?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think he has the most suiting physical gifts and the highest ceiling of anyone on a roster for that position. The only name I'm going to throw out there that I would say, 1, don't be disappointed in, 2, don't be surprised in, 3, expect a lot from, that's Tyree Phillips. If he can stay healthy, the Ravens really like Phillips. And he's flashed, and he's different than Ben.
But why?
Why do they like him?
Why the hell do they like him so much? Because every time he plays, he gets hurt.
Right, that's the problem. But to me, he's very athletic for his size. He moves well for his size. He's long. Remember, he played football in high school for 1 year, Glenn. Then went to JUCO and then ended up at Mississippi State. So still a young football player. I know he's been in the league for a while, but they originally had him pegged in at left guard, if you remember.
Yep.
And then he got hurt, but he started that rookie year, if I'm not mistaken.
Does he beat Falalele out
at right or left guard?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're putting Falele at left guard,
let Tyler Linderbaum be your puller.
Yeah, then you put Falele over both Cleveland and Phillips. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying. I think at 6'8", 384. I mean, I don't know, man.
I don't mind switching. I don't mind putting him in guard, putting him inside. The only thing about Falele is that he's such a new football player. He didn't grow up watching football. He was playing rugby. So, like, changing positions on the line for him might be a big deal, might not. Now, he's incredibly athletic, but that would be my only concern is that, like, he's not a very well-seasoned football player yet, right?
No.
So, but I like the idea. I mean, I want to get – we always talk about it. It's your best 5. Get creative to get your best 5 on the field.
Yeah, and remember – people can say what they want about his. I think once he slims down a little bit, I think he's got the opportunity to lose a little bit of weight. He was a rugby player when they found him.
Yeah.
So the guy, people question his athleticism.
Feet.
I think he's got all the athleticism you would need when he comes from playing rugby as his background. And in college, they felt good enough about his athleticism to hand him the damn ball and let him be a short yardage goal line guy, as well as let him throw the ball once because he threw a touchdown. So I think he's got the feet. But what do you think about, let's see, Isaiah Y says, fan of Tylan Wallace from college, want to see him play. I know you're a big fan of Tylan Wallace, Jimbo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this kid, so you look at our depth chart, you got Rashad Bateman, of course, who right now is the lead dog in the room. But who in your mind is number 2 behind Rashad?
I mean, I think right now you pencil Devin Duvernay in, but his value is mainly on special teams.
Right. You do it because of his tenure and because of what he's done on special teams, but not really because of what he's flashed. I mean, he's had moments, but not a ton of moments on the field. It's been about special teams. So I think
Crochet's ahead of him.
Yeah.
He's been here a year longer. Remember the work ethic they love. You know he's going to be the talk of camp, Jimbo. He's going to be the first one in, last one out every day.
Yep. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. But the other thing I want to say is I think, I don't know, everything I've seen from Tylan Wallace from the day we went to camp to even the one catch he made, like he's smooth. He catches with his hands, not his body. He's sure-handed. He can make contested catches. He's got physical gifts to get the job done. I like this kid a lot, man. I think he can make a big jump.
Yeah, and I hope to see some physical development.
Maturation, right?
Yeah, it took place in the offseason. I want to see him put on some weight, much like we did with Hollywood. I want to see, because he looked a little small out there when we went to camp.
Looked like a college player.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to see him look like a pro this year, and there's no reason to expect him not to.
Speaking of which, have you dude, Lamar right now?
Is he looking swole?
Dude, look at the next time. Just look at the traps on Lamar. Remember
Yeah,
the traps?
Had the traps.
Dude, remember the 19 traps? But the problem is last year he came out to camp. Remember he had the little fun bags on the side?
He did have a little thickness. Yeah.
He had the little love handles on the side.
Mm-hmm.
No, dude, Lamar looks trim. He's got the traps. The 2019 traps are back, baby. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I totally took a right turn there.
No, you're good. I get excited to see these guys transform their bodies too, because that shows me a level of commitment. Because look, these guys, they don't want to go back to the injury-ridden season they had last year. Right. And the best way to prepare for a season is to make sure your body is ready for the grueling training camp that the Ravens run. Now, I know there's doing a lot of changes to training camp, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how those kind of take place and what type of adjustments they make to try and eliminate some of these injuries. But nonetheless, it's an NFL training camp, so you got to get your body right, and that's cool to hear. He's not just working with the Tom House crew. Right. I love that he's working with our receivers as well. You know, not just throwing to his buddies or some random guys. He's bringing along his guys who he'll be throwing to once he's back here in Baltimore. So yeah, keep it up. Keep the work going, and let's see what these receivers can do, because they're finally going to get the opportunity.
That's what it's about.
That they've been waiting for. Yep.
Yeah, I think that these guys have been beating on the door, talking to the coaches, not, complaining, but in practice, just grinding and, building relationships with their coaching staff. And coaches like, look, let's do this thing, right? But I also think Devin Duvernay, like you said, is primed. I mean, look, I realize these is unrealistic expectations, but the player comp for him is absolutely Deebo Samuel.
For who's that? Devin Duvernay?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think he has every bit of talent that Deebo does. Now, is he in the same system? Is he given the same opportunities? Those things might not be the case, but I think he can make a big jump too. Dude, can the season just be here today? Can it just be Saturday and tomorrow we wake up at Sunday?
And I can't wait. I can't wait to hear all the silence from these haters around the league. They're saying that, that are praising all these other teams and saying, look what this team's doing. Look what it. I'm telling you, when that season comes around, the Ravens are nothing to be playing with. They got a defense. They said, we're going to go secondary. I was shocked to see the Ravens go first round safety after all they've all the resources they've spent to make the secondary what it is. But after they did it, I'm happy, because man, you in this league, you got to have guys that can cover. You got to have guys that are multiple in defense. We talk about that in the NBA, having these positionless guys. Well, the Ravens got a bunch of them, and that can make it real nightmare for offensive coordinators.
Yeah, the last thing, and this is how I want to end the show, if you got a few more minutes here, Glenn.
Yeah, what's up?
Can we just address the people that are concerned about the Ravens? This is what I've been hearing. The Ravens didn't draft a wide receiver. The Ravens didn't take a pass catcher in the first 3 rounds. The Ravens refused to put weapons around Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are going to ruin Lamar Jackson's career. This, that, and the other. And they're so worried about Lamar Jackson, the Ravens building around Lamar Jackson. Like, to me, there are a ton of reasons why you don't need to be concerned about that, and you shouldn't bang on the Ravens for that, right? But I want to get your take on that. I want to give mine, but I want to get your take first on that narrative, right? Like, where are you when it comes to that?
Well, I think people are forgetting that the Ravens did invest in a pretty big weapon for Lamar Jackson in Mark Andrews, right? They paid him a boatload of money to make sure he's the safety blanket here in Baltimore for years to come. And let's not forget that they used a number 1 pick as at wide receiver in 2 of the last 4 years, which is something the Ravens traditionally hadn't done. And they looked at it and saying that a wide receiver might not be as valuable in this system as a tight end and a great offensive lineman is, because if you can run the ball, then you can throw it and play action off of it. But the first and most important thing is being able to run the ball. And they said, we're building a wall in front of Lamar. They said, what's our biggest weaknesses? Right tackle was pretty bad. Boom, let's go get Morgan Moses, who never misses games and is about as solid a right tackle as you'll find. Yep. Then they went and said, you know what? We're tired of using 5th-round draft picks and undrafted free agents to be our center, to be the middle of our offense and snap the ball to our franchise. Let's go get the best center prospect in the history of PFF evaluating. Okay, that's a pretty good decision.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty smart. And then they go ahead and they further the depth and continue to build the depth on the offensive line as a contingency plan for some of these guys who have had issues with being hurt and banged up, bringing in guys, like Faalele. So I think that if a receiver had fallen to the point where it made sense for them to grab a guy, then I'd be happy with it. But I also am happy that they have the self-control to not reach for a guy who may fill a need, but is a complete overreach at the position and might ultimately not end up working out. They went and got a bunch of team captains, a bunch of smart guys that love ball. And so I'm happy with that. And look, you can go around and you can add weapons. It don't matter if you can't block the guy in front of you and keep your quarterback upright.
Yep. 100%. I want to give my response here, but before I do, let's look at Dan Wald 80 here. Says, let's be honest, Lamar Jackson wants to be a Raven for life, no trade ever, win multiple Super Bowls, continue to prove the narrative wrong, and live his best life still. What would shock you, honestly? Who's our quarterback next decade plus?
Oh, it's got to be Lamar. It better be Lamar, or I'll be shocked. I mean,
the Ravens aren't fumbling this one. They're just not.
No.
It's not going to happen. But I want to give my answer to all those folks that are complaining and concerned and whining and banging on the Ravens for not, quote unquote, not putting weapons around Lamar Jackson. One simple phrase comes to mind for me: get over it. Get over it. This is what the Ravens do. They build the right way, inside out, period. The Ravens have been drafting for best player available for years. And guess what, guys? It works out pretty well. I can name a few of them. Let me guess. Our first 2 draft picks, Jonathan Ogden, Ray Lewis, ring a bell? They're both in the Hall of Fame. They both got gold jackets. And the list goes on and on. It wasn't always... Look, when the Ravens took Ed Reed, no one was projecting us to take a safety that year either. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's countless examples of players at the Ravens. What happens?
We'll have Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah, what about J.K. Dobbins? Everyone was like, what? J.K. Dobbins? We got Mark Ingram. We got Gus Edwards. Gus had just broken out. Mark had just ran for 1,000 yards, right? And Gus broke all kinds of records being the most efficient rusher in the NFL. We went and got Dobbins, and what happened? We needed Dobbins, right? So all I'm saying is that just open your eyes a little bit. And like Glenn said, look at the investments in the pass catchers. Wide receiver, tight end, call it whatever you want. They're people Lamar Jackson throws the ball to, right? Look at the investments in the offensive line. We tried to pay Ronnie, and he got hurt. You can't control that, right? We went out and we got Zeitler. We got the best freaking center in the NFL. We paid McCary, right? We go get Morgan Moses, like you said. I mean, we've drafted Ben after Ben after Ben after Ben at left guard, right? Like, guys, we're doing everything we can to build around Lamar Jackson. And just so you know, it's a team sport. Lamar Jackson having a good defense makes his life easier.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and you know what's also pretty exciting? You talked about the best player available. Well, that's been working pretty well. If you look since 2012, so I'm not looking back to the early 2000s. No, just since 2012, the Ravens have drafted. Let's see, at an All-Pro rate, they have a 6.6% of their draft picks have gone to an All-Pro team, which is number 1 in the league. Second is the Cowboys at 6%. So they drafted the most All-Pros in the National Football League since 2012. That's pretty good. And while doing that, while only having 1 top 10 pick in all those years, and that was used on Ronnie Stanley. So I think while there's times where we see a need and see a guy who we think might fit that need, he might have issues that we aren't unaware of. I mean, a lot of these guys have personality issues, issues with their teammates, issues with their coaches, and maybe that's why they ultimately weren't selected. But I think the Ravens going with best player available is the smartest thing to do. And let's maybe say the Ravens may be taking a left turn when every other team is making a right turn. Maybe they're doing the arms race at the receiver position. The Ravens say, we're building the trenches because we know that protecting your quarterback, stopping the run, and all that stuff is the most important thing. So I'm excited about it. I think that I think Ravens fans ultimately will be just as excited, even the ones who are hesitant to kind of get on board with the direction the team's going. I think they'll all be happy by midseason when the Ravens are leading the division and competing for AFC, supremacy.
Amen. A freaking man, hallelujah, and everything else. Looking forward to this season. Now,
before they go, Evan Washburn is dropping them up. We're dropping the episode with Evan tomorrow night. Again, please forgive my audio with my mix up with my mic. I sounded like crap, but it's a great episode nonetheless. Evan gives excellent insight into everything Ravens.
And as a follow-up to that, look, we don't stop here at 410 Sports Talk. So just like last year, but with hopefully even bigger guests and more guests, we're going to be giving you guys as much insight as we can on these draftees by talking to the people that have been following them in college, whether that's coaches, trainers, reporters, whoever we can, whoever we deem to be the best person to get on the show to talk about that person, we will. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we get one or two of them on themselves. If you guys got any hookups, send them our way. But certainly we're doing our very best to do the best we can for you guys and produce the best show we can. So we appreciate all the support, all the love, all the super chats. You're all going up on the wall. Shout out to all you guys, whether you participated or not. We love you all. Your presence and energy is felt. Have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon.